All right. So that's freedom of religion in a nutshell. Make sure you understand that, the big concept. Understand that it's not the government's keeping religion away from things. It's presenting a balanced area. There's a lot of perception versus reality issues with freedom of religion. All right. So freedom of speech and free people. So when we look at our right to speak up and be ourselves, express ourselves, this is a guaranteed fundamental right protected under the First Amendment. So originally you had this idea called the bad tendency test. And the bad tendency test was that the government could go ahead and make laws that could stop you from speaking out or doing things that promoted people to break the law. But that wasn't really defined. And so, if you were encouraging people to break a law out of civil disobedience because you felt that law was wrong, the government could make a law saying you can't do that. And that defeats the whole purpose of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is your right to speak out against those things and encourage people to agree with you. So, we went ahead and got rid of the freedom of speech or the bad tendency aspect of our laws. And we went to, in the early 1900s, this clear and present danger test. And clear and present danger is exactly that. You are allowed to speak your mind. You're allowed to encourage people to do things as long as it's not a clear and present danger to the United States. So you can encourage people in Flint, Michigan to protest, to tell the government where they can take their water and what they can do with that water. You can encourage people to not pay their taxes because the IRS is wrong. You can encourage people to go and protest and boycott and avoid. That's fine. You're not hurting anyone. Okay, what you can't do is encourage people to join a terrorist group or to fight against the government. Okay, anything that would be a clear and present danger against our government, against our Congress, against other people, okay, you cannot do. You cannot encourage that kind of behavior. So there's a line, and it's not an easy line. Sometimes there's gray areas, especially in this day and age with the internet. What are you allowed to encourage on the internet? Are you allowed to support somebody like Snowden, who worked for the National Security Advisory of the NSA, and he got a hold of a whole bunch of top secrets and had that information, and then turned a bunch of them loose? Is that free speech, or is that a danger to our government? And that's something that some people feel that he was right in what he did. Other people disagree, but the government would go after and punish him for that. So that's where you get into that clear and present danger part, is when it comes to our government. But when you're looking at your freedom of speech and you're looking at, well, what are you allowed to do in reality? You're allowed to speak your mind. You just can't hurt people. You can't put people in a dangerous situation. You can't put people in a situation where they're going to cause an issue. So, for example, you can't scream fire in a packed movie theater. When people hear fire, they're going to panic. When they panic, they're going to run for the exits and somebody could get hurt. You can't do that in an airport where you scream bomb. That's not an acceptable thing because it can hurt people. Okay, so you do tend to see that, and you tend to see those issues where your freedom of speech can be limited to where you're going to put people in danger. But the way that it generally works is what we call the preferred position document or doctrine. And the idea is that the preferred position of the government action should always be to protect your speech first. So if the government is going to do something that is not going to protect your speech, they have to really be able to justify it, because the courts are always going to support your freedom of speech first unless there's a clear, mapped out, plain as day, this is why it should not be protected speech. Okay? Because we believe as a society, for our government to work the best and for our people to be represented the best, speech should be protected. And that's what this next point means. You should be able to disagree. You should be able to express your opinions. You should be able to speak out. You should be able to announce whatever you want. If you want to get up from the hilltop and scream that Donald Trump is the greatest guy in the world, that's fine. If you want to get up on the hilltop and scream that Donald Trump is the devil, that's fine, and it should always be protected. So if the government cannot come up with a very clear, good, argued case, the court's always going to protect speech. Okay, and then you have this element of prior restraint. So sometimes the government, and it goes back to what I was talking about with case law, sometimes the government said, hey, you know what? We're not going to let you talk about this because this could be bad for us. We're going to stop this before it happens because we don't want that problem. And the court said, well, wait a second. Is that the right thing to do? Under a country with freedom of speech, should you be able to stop someone from saying something before they say it because it might be bad? And the courts came back and said, no, you can't do that. You cannot stop someone from saying something before they say it. Okay? And so if you think back to what I talked about, ex post facto laws, you can say anything. And you can't get in trouble for it if it's not already a law. Now, the government can make it a law after you've said it because then they have the justification to deal with the situation. But the government cannot go out there and make laws with your speech to stop you from possibly preventing or saying something. So they can't pass a law that you're allowed to disagree with the war in Iraq when it was happening. They can't pass a law that you're not allowed to speak out this way. You're not allowed to speak that way. There's no prior restraint. You cannot stop someone from saying something. You just have to deal with it after the fact when it comes to our government. Okay, so we really do emphasize this freedom of speech and this free people and making sure that people are in a good position. Going back up to clear and present danger, we do run into a lot of problems with that free press. When the press is reporting on the military or the press is out there reporting about, those kind of things, are they crossing that line with our government? Or do they have a free press, free speech to go ahead and say those things? And so the press gets in a lot of trouble or a lot of questionable situations with clear and present danger. So what can't you say? What is not always going to be protected? Libel and slander. Okay, libel and slander is that you deliberately speak out or write. Libel is written, slander is spoken, SS, slander spoken, libel is written. You deliberately and knowingly put out false information to hurt somebody's credibility. Okay, so you cannot do that. You cannot flat out lie about somebody in a knowingly manner. So if you guys are applying for college next year and one of your professor comes up or one of the schools calls me and says, hey, what do you know about so-and-so? And I'm like, so-and-so? Oh man, yeah, they were an AP kid, but you don't understand how many times they were caught selling crack in the bathroom. Okay, and I know that's not true. You know that's not true, and that keeps you out of college. You guys can come after and sue me. That's not a protected speech. I cannot lie when I know it's going to harm somebody. I have to be honest. Now, you do have a couple exceptions here. If you're a celebrity or politician, part of the job of being a public figure is people are going to gossip about you. And so that's not always protected. Okay, so they will look at if it's a situation where people are gossiping and lying about you, but it's not hurting you, that's not always protected. So you can say whatever you want about the Kardashians, whatever you want about Taylor Swift, whatever you want about Trump, whatever you want about Clinton. Even if it's not true, your thoughts to your friends, your expression of that speech is not hurting them in any way, shape, or form. So they can't sue everybody that says a bad word about them, everybody that disagrees with them. You have to be able to show that it damaged you, and that's very, very difficult. Every time somebody speaks ill of Donald Trump, he seems to get 2 votes. So how can you justify and say that that hurt him? And that's the key part to libel and slander, is you have to be able to show that it damaged you. Most of the time with libel and slander, it's going to be that you cost someone a job. You lied about their ability, you lied about something in the past, and you cost them a job, and they can show that, and then you can be in trouble. Okay. Obscenity and pornography. Okay, there is regulations on that. You cannot be obscene in public. You cannot be obscene in the workplace. You cannot be obscene in schools. You cannot show pornography to people that are under the age of 18. You cannot show pornography in general public, those kind of things. And those have been regulated and put out there that they're trying to protect the interest of kids. Those laws are tied to what can a kid accidentally come across. So if you're on the street corner and a mom's taking her 5-year-old to the park and you're dropping the F word every other time, screaming it from the hilltops or whatever, or you're waving around pornographic images, the kid can see that and it's no fault of the kid, and we don't want that in society. So that can be heavily restricted. It can be, censored, for lack of a better way of putting it. You can't go into your workplace and drop the F-bomb because your other people have to be there working. Hey, and it's the same thing at school. That's why you guys can get in trouble for saying things and teachers can't say certain words, is because we all have to be here together. We have to respect each other in that way. You're in your basement, you're hanging out with your friends, you're in an empty park by yourselves, you can do whatever you want and you're not going to get caught. You're not interfering with anybody unless somebody in that group says, well, that's a problem with what you said. That becomes a big issue. Okay, and then fighting words. When you look at fighting words and what's going on there, you're not allowed to say things that cause a fight. You're not allowed to say things that cause some kind of violent activity. Okay, so if you instigate or cause a outbreak of violence, you can get in trouble. Also, commercial speech. So if you're advertising something, if you're out there trying to sell someone something, that's not protected. You can't just say whatever you want. People can come after you for false representation. People can come after your company. People can say you didn't represent yourself properly. That's unprotected. Okay, so when you're selling something, people get creative all the time. People get selective in what words they use and don't words, or don't use, or the fine print. All of those things that comes into play under commercial speech, and that may not be protected depending on the circumstances. Okay. All right, so we're going to stop here for today, but I want to talk about your fishbowl on Friday. So on your fishbowl on Friday, you need to understand that we're going to talk about the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. We'll finish the First Amendment and go over the Second Amendment tomorrow, but the fishbowl is going to center on those two issues. And I want to throw another curveball at you, and I know you guys are super happy about this, but you need to listen so you understand completely. I want each of you on your own to create a debate-style question about the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, any aspect. And instead of me throwing out questions while you guys are doing your fishbowl to keep the conversation going about the different topics, I'm going to point out one of you, and you're going to have to state your question. Now, it's not a question of like, what does the First Amendment say about... No. You need to come up with statements that are going to be something that you can debate in your First Amendment, or in your fishbowl. So, newspapers should have the right to publish anything they want. Politicians should be limited in lying. Gun controls, assault weapons should be banned from society. There should be absolutely no regulations. You need to make some kind of statement and then have people have to pick a side and explain why. Okay, so remember, you guys are doing your research on the First and Second Amendment. You're doing your casework. You're thinking about that. So you're also going to have to each come in with just one question. You can pick it from anywhere in the First and Second. And as we go through, you're going to throw them out. Now, whoever gives the best question will get extra credit. And whoever gives the best response throughout the entire fishbowl on Friday will also get extra credit. So you guys are getting graded on your work and participation, but you have two opportunities to get extra credit by creating the best question, in my opinion, and the best response, in my opinion. So you need to really think about this and develop this. Okay, so the bell should be ringing pretty soon. I'm going to stop here. Hopefully everything's good and you guys got through all of this. So you will have more of this tomorrow, or this will pick up tomorrow and you'll finish it. All right. Have a good day.